Hello, everyone. Jarrett Hoffman here with another edition of the Better Than Less Than podcast. If you are new to the HBCU Sports YouTube channel, the Better Than Less Than podcast is all of the trending topics and latest news in Division II and NAIA HBCU sports. So if that's your cup of tea, if you follow with a CIAA, follow the SIAC, the HBCUAC, or you're following schools like Zula, the West Virginia State, Lincoln, Missouri, you'll get all of your news of those HBCUs here. But if you want to follow the MEAC, we have the MEAC and More podcast with Chris Stevens, where he talks about obviously the MEAC and our independent HBCUs at the Division I level, like North Carolina A&T, Hampton, and Tennessee State. And we also have the SWAC page podcast with Kendrick Marshall and Ken Rashad. That the MEAC and More is usually on Wednesdays, and the SWAC page podcast is usually on Fridays. And of course, you have Thursdays with me here on the Better Than Less Than podcast. So please, if you're new here, please subscribe to the channel. You can also subscribe to become a level 1, 2, or 3 member for all of the exclusive content and possibly some giveaways with the HBCU sports team. And you can follow us on all of our social media platforms. We are on Twitter X, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we're on Thread, whatever all the social medias, we're on there. Type in HBCU Sports and you will find us there. And you can always follow us on hbcusports.com for all of the latest news in HBCU sports. This podcast is brought to you by the HBCU Sports Awards, the second annual HBCU Sports Awards that will be taking place till July 26th. Right here on the HBCU Sports YouTube channel, we will be giving out awards for all of the sports and all of the student athletes, all of the coaches and commissioners. At Athletic Conference, we'll be awarding all of the great and rising stars from the 2024-2025 athletic season. So stay tuned for that. We'll be on July 26th right here on the HBCU Sports YouTube channel. All right, let's get into the show. We have quite a few things to talk about. We have a HBCU at the NAIA level that will be moving conferences next year. But we had a host of coaching changes announced in the past week. And we're going to start on the women's side with West Virginia State. They announced that they are hiring Whitney Bays as their new West Virginia State women's basketball coach. They moved on from I believe it's James Marshall. I apologize if that's the wrong. Charles Marshall. Sorry, said James Marshall. Charles Marshall. They moved on from Charles Marshall this offseason, and they went out and got Whitney Bays to fill in that slot. Whitney Bays comes with a tremendous pedigree in basketball. She was a former standout player. She was a former 2-time Gatorade Player of the Year in the state of West Virginia at Huntington High School. And then she went on to the University of Maryland and then transferred to the University of Purdue, where she really broke out as a star and was selected to the All Big Ten second team. And she was a former Big Ten Sixth Woman of the Year. They call it Sixth Man of the Year, but I feel like Sixth Woman of the Year, whatever. But and then she went on to have an overseas career in Puerto Rico, led that team to a championship in that league. And then embarked on a career in coaching. She returned to her her high school alma mater, Huntington High School, and coached there. And then entered the collegiate ranks at Gardner-Webb, led them to their first tournament appearance in 13 years or so. And then she was hired as the assistant coach at the University of Memphis, or Memphis University, whichever one it is, and has been there for the past 2 seasons before she was hired by West Virginia State. This is a very interesting hire by West Virginia State. Coach Bays does not have head coaching experience at the collegiate level. This will be her first head coaching job, and she's taken over a West Virginia State team, a West Virginia State women's team that has a pretty significant track record. The 2 seasons prior to this year, they made it to the NCAA Division II tournament, despite not winning the Mountain East Conference tournament. Back-to-back 20-win seasons. This year broke a streak of consecutive 20-win seasons. Not a bad year in the grand scheme of things, but by West Virginia State's what's the word I'm looking for? By their standards, it wasn't the season that they wanted. Obviously, they missed out on the Division II national tournament, but did make it to the semifinals of the conference tournament. So not all was lost. They were 18-13 on the season, 10-10 in conference play. So Whitney Bays, Coach Bays is going to be taking over a team that has tournament aspirations, and she has the pedigree to get it done. Like I said, she got it done as an assistant at Gardner Webb. Didn't have the record that she may have wanted while at University of Memphis, but coming from there, you face some high caliber competition coming from the University of Memphis. Shout out WSSU Ram Nation D1 assistant to D2 head coach. It's a solid move for you. Absolutely, it absolutely is and especially when she's relatively young in the coaching game. She's only been coaching, I believe, for about at least at the collegiate level. She's only been coaching at the collegiate level for 3 years. She was hired by Gardner Webb in 2022, so she hasn't been in the collegiate ranks long. So the fact that she progressed that quickly to becoming a head coach, whether it's at the D2 level or not, like that's very impressive. So absolutely, that's a solid move for her, to be able to make that jump. She's really only been coaching for 6 years total. She got her first coaching job in general at her high school alma mater in 2019. So yeah, that's a very fast progression that clearly West Virginia State sees something in her that they can build on, and potentially that she can take them to the next level. Yeah, absolutely. She was coaching at her West Virginia high school. So the high school that she went to. So she knows the area. So recruiting should probably go well for her in the state. And who knows? Maybe we see West Virginia State get over that hump and claim a Mountain East title. I can't. I don't have it in front of me, so I'm not sure when was the last time they won a Mountain East title, but it hasn't stopped them from making it to the national tournament. Like I said before, the previous 2 years, they were in the national tournament. So with her in the door now, they see her as the person that can get them over that hump to claiming the conference title and maybe even winning a game in the national tournament. So a very interesting hire by West Virginia State. Looking forward to see how that one plays out. But the progression of Coach Bays is something that is, I don't want to say it's unheard of, because we've seen, people progress past being an assistant for a certain amount of years. But for someone who doesn't have, and I say this with all due respect, someone who doesn't have the highest name value, the fact that she has been able to progress through past the coaching tree that fast, in just 3 years, it's very impressive. And it's clearly a sign that West Virginia State sees something in her that she could potentially be a high caliber coach for a high caliber program someday. So looking forward to see how West Virginia State benefits from this. And yeah, just a very interesting hire, to say the least. Next up, we got Fort Valley State, who announced that they were hiring Brandon Britt as their next men's basketball coach. Is this the? I was about to get my coaching tree mixed up. I was about to say that they hired Andre Payne, but that was Allen that did that. Coach Britt. This is a very, very interesting hire, because he does not bring the most. Well, wrong coach. Look, guys, I'm completely out of it. I'm trying to keep it together, but Brandon Britt comes to Fort Valley State from Edward Waters. He previously coached as an assistant on the Edward Waters men's basketball team, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is his first collegiate head coaching job, because he graduated college in 2015 and he coached AAU and he coached at the high school level. But his first coaching job at the collegiate level was as an assistant at Edward Waters. So this is going to be his first collegiate head coaching job, and it's another one that is a very interesting move where it's somebody who does not have the most credentials in coaching at the collegiate level. Like I said, he coached at Edward Waters, but it was, so, and he was a part of the team, an Edward Waters team that had their first winning record at the Division II level. But he's taken over a Fort Valley State team that is about in the middle of the pack in the SIAC, a very competitive SIAC. Last season, they finished with an 11-10 conference record. They were 12-17 overall, and that was a tremendous upgrade from the previous year. Believe it or not, they were 7-21 the previous year and was 7-14 in conference play. So I feel like Fort Valley State probably needed a more experienced coach. To be quite honest with you, I think that they are a program in need of some structure, in need of a direction. And I'm not. I don't want to say that Brandon Britt isn't that guy. I don't know enough about him other than what I just said. Obviously, I don't know enough about him to really say whether or not he's the right man for the job. But me personally, I would have went with a more experienced name if I was Fort Valley State. I probably would have made a call to Chris Wright from Langston and probably would have seen what I could do to swindle him away. I probably would have called Bo Browder from Zula and seen what I could have got, if I could have swindled him away, even though he's been there forever, so it would have took a lot to probably get him from Zula. But I probably would have made those calls. I would have made a call to a couple of assistants at the national level, at the Division I national level. Quite honestly, I don't know if I would have went for a project, because essentially, and again, I don't mean to be disrespectful to Coach Britt, but he is a project. He's somebody that doesn't have as many credentials as an assistant, let alone as a coach at the collegiate level in general. Like West Virginia State is different. They have an established identity. West Virginia State's women has an established identity. I don't think Fort Valley State, when you think of Fort Valley State, you think of a football school. They don't have an identity when it comes to basketball. And when you think about how competitive basketball or sports is athletics is in general in the SIAC level, you have to have someone in place that can put you over the top. And not saying that Coach Britt isn't that guy that can get them to that place where they can be a contender in the SIAC, but I'm just saying that this is something that we're just going to have to see play out. So I hope the best for him. Hopefully he makes me look stupid and like he takes Fort Valley State to the next level and they're contending in the SIAC and potentially even are in contention to be in the national tournament. I would love that for all of our schools. But as bad as I'm talking about Fort Valley State, I would love for them to prove me wrong. So interesting hire by Fort Valley State, and looking forward to see how that plays out. And the last hire that we need to talk about is Talladega. I mentioned Andre. I was about to mention Andre Payne in a second. I can absolutely mention him here because he was recently brought back from Allen University, where he was supposed to be. He was announced as their next men's basketball coach, but he was swindled back to Talladega to remain as the women's basketball player with the added position of athletic director. And his first hire as athletic director is Jameis Hartsfield, who will be taking over as the men's basketball coach for Talladega. And he is someone else who has a tremendous basketball background. He played for Texas College from 2004 to 2008. He was I'm reading my notes. So if you see me looking off to the side, it's because I'm looking at my notes, because I had to educate myself before I came on here. I don't want y'all thinking that I'm making stuff up on the fly. But Yeah, he was the NAIA's leading rebounder, and he was a defensive player of the year. When and he was selected to NA. Oh, just making sure I got that right. Yep. Yeah, he was second to the second team all conference. I thought it said two all conference teams. I wanted to make sure that was right. But then he entered the coaching ranks at Wiley College, led them to the national tournament, and was very young at the time that he first got that position at Wiley. He was only 27 years old, and that's very young to be a head coach. But if you know anything about the NAIA level, a lot of their coaches start off very young. So, and in my conversation with Chris Wright a couple of years ago, he talked about how humble you have to be to coach at the NAIA level, and how it takes you a while before you make decent money at the NAIA level. I need to find that article. I need to reshare that, to talk. That was a great conversation I had with Chris Wright about, coaching at the NAIA level and how humbling it is, and seeing how he's turned out has been incredible. But back to Mr. Hartsfield, then he had a tremendous track record while at Wiley, led Wiley to a couple of wins against Division I opponents, including against Grambling State University, which, for those of you who are not familiar with the HBCU sports brand, the boss man, Ken Rashad, went to Grambling State. So I'm pretty sure he probably had to witness that loss to Wiley College or Wiley University. The Wiley University. My bad. I don't want, because if you know anything about Wiley, they will be quick to let you know we are not Wiley College anymore. We are Wiley University. So Wiley University got a win over boss man Ken Rashad's alma mater, Grambling State University, a couple of years ago. So, and he had a 62-34 overall record while at Wiley. Just off of those accomplishments alone, not a lot of experience outside of Wiley University at the collegiate level. He did coach at the high school level previously, but in terms of college, so these are all three coaches who don't have the most experience coaching at the collegiate level, but they are people who have the trust of their respective universities, and they are taking over programs that are definitely have different circumstances. West Virginia State's women is one that has an established identity, has an established level of success, making it to multiple national tournaments. Fort Valley State is a team that has whittled at the middle of the pack, and the SIAC hasn't really been a contender for the past couple of years. And then you have Talladega, who in post-pandemic, the first season post-pandemic, were in the NAIA national tournament, in a national championship game. I mean, when Chris Wright was the coach before he moved to Langston, and they've found a way to keep up that level of success and be among the class of the NAIA ranks. And they last season they were 20-9. Since they moved to the HBCUAC, they have been consistently good. 20-9. They've had 21 seasons in each of the past 3 years. So James Hartsfield has a lot on his hands trying to continue to elevate this Talladega program. That of all the coaches, the new coaches who were just in these three coaches that were just announced, he probably has the biggest chip on his shoulder, because he's taken over a Talladega program that, like I said, is ascending. They're continuing to ascend. The only thing is that they have to find a way to get over that hump in the HBCUAC. This past year they were one of the favorites to win the HBCUAC conference title, and they were just ran through by Philander Smith in the conference tournament. So that's going to be the next step for Talladega, is getting over that hump in the HBCUAC conference tournament and making it to the national tournament again. So will they eventually become a national championship threat? I don't know. Chris Wright is a different level of coach. No disrespect to Mr. Hartsfield. I don't want to compare him to past administrations, because that's a lot to live up to, having taken over a team that just 3 or 4 years ago, were in the NAIA national championship game. That's a lot to put on him. It's one step at a time. Just right now, it's continuing to remain consistent in pumping out 20-win seasons, which they have done religiously. They've done that religiously especially since they rejoined the HBCUAC from I believe they were. We'll talk about where they previously were in a second, because there's another school where we got to talk about that is going to where they were. But I'm curious to see how this works out for Talladega and Mr. Hartsfield. I was trying to manufacture something else to say, but I didn't have anything. But moving on to the last topic, we have to talk about a team that is changing conferences. That will be in a different conference July 1st next year, and that will be Xavier University of Louisiana. They are leaving the Red River Athletic Conference after a 5-year, what will be a 5-year stint. It's been 4 years to this day. Next year, when they leave, it will have been 5 years they've been in the Red River Athletic Conference, when they will move on to the Southern States Athletic Conference, which is where the aforementioned Talladega was when they made their appearance in the NAIA National Championship game. I believe it was in 2022 that they made that appearance in the NAIA National Championship game. So Zula is on the move to the Southern States Athletic Conference. This was voted on by the Southern States Athletic Conference Board of Presidents, and they on June 4th, so earlier this month, and it was recently announced. It was announced a couple of days ago that it is official that they will be a full member of the Southern States Athletic Conference. So they will be affiliate members this upcoming athletic season in competitive cheer and men's and women's indoor track and field. But by not this time next year, a couple of days this time next year, they will be a full member of the Southern States Athletic Conference. Zula moved to the Red River Athletic Conference in 2021 after a 40-year stint in what was then the Gulf Coast Athletic Conference. So they left just prior to. Shout out to Ken Rashad, boss man in the chat. Still like to know why Zula isn't a member of the HBCUAC. Yeah, when it was discussed, when it was the name change happened, and when Stillman and who was it? Stillman, Philander Smith, and there's one more school that I'm forgetting that joined around that time when they joined the HBCUAC. I think there was some rumblings about Zula being a part of that, but I think I'm not sure what happened. I would love to give you some inside information. I don't have it. What I do know is that Zula is not the only team that is leaving the Red River Athletic Conference. Houston Tillotson and I forgot the other team. This other school, the other school that's leaving the Red River Athletic Conference to join the HBCUAC. As a matter of fact, it is Paul Quinn. So yeah, there you go. Thank you, Ken. It's Houston Tillotson and Paul Quinn will both be leaving the Red River Athletic Conference, and they're going to the HBCUAC. That's going to be effective July 1st this year. So, oh Lord have mercy, we got some SWAC, we got SWAC rivalries in the chat. Come on, man, this is better than less than. This is a Division II and NAIA. We don't need no SWAC rivalries going on in the comments, man. But shout out Adrian Kirk in the chat, man. But you got Houston Tillotson and Paul Quinn, who are both leaving the Red River Athletic Conference for the HBCUAC, and Zula is going to the Southern States. Now, I'm not sure if there was any conversation about if there was a chance that maybe Zula could make the move to the HBC, back to the HBCUAC. Well, they were never in the HBCUAC. They were in the Gulf Coast Athletic Conference, two different conferences. But I'm not sure what went into it. I don't know if maybe there was. I just simply don't know what it was that kept Zula from joining the HBCUAC. I think it would have been a great look. I would love to see all of our HBCUs at the NAIA level. I would love to see Langston and Florida Memorial and Zula should go. That would be very interesting. That'll be very interesting. If you know anything about Zula, they have a very elite athletic program. You know, they were in the national NAIA men's and women's basketball tournament, won games in the NAIA men's and women's basketball tournament, had a slew of athletes in the NAIA outdoor track and field championships, had multiple athletes compete in finals of events. Or maybe it was just one, and I'm imagining that it was multiple. But, oh, come on, man. We gotta stop with the Mississippi Valley State to the SIAC, man. Come on. Why Mississippi Valley State gotta go to the SIAC? I get it. The Mississippi Valley State athletic program on paper, well, not even on paper, we've seen that they haven't had that enough success at the SWAC to warrant them continuing to be in the SWAC, you know, and we see Division II team. We've seen Division II teams beat them. I get it. We've seen Central State beat them a couple of years ago. Miles gave them was it Miles or was it somebody else? I think it was Lane or somebody that gave them run for their money a couple of years ago. But we got to stop thinking that that's going to solve Mississippi Valley State's problems. Going to the SIAC is not going to fix anything for Mississippi Valley State. Lee Valley, you know, because there are other teams in the Division I who are just there absolutely are. Yeah, we're not going to pick on Valley like they're the only one. We joke with them because they are little cousins, but like there are definitely Division I schools. We've seen a Division I school that got beat in the tournament by Alabama State that moved all the way down to D3. So there are definitely schools that are at the Division I level that probably shouldn't be there. But anyway, we're going to see. I done got y'all roping me into this conversation about Division I's. We talk about Division II and NAIA. We talk about Zula. And Zula going to the SIAC, I'm not sure geographically or in terms of like travel and logistics and stuff like that, and like scholarships, how that will work out for them. I'm not sure in terms of like funding, how that will work out with Zula. But yeah, I'm trying not to fall for it, Ken. They got me roped in. They got me roped in. Yeah, but yeah, Zula. I think Zula, in terms of in the field of play, I think they would match up with any team in the SIAC. Does that mean they're going to take over the conference and just rack up a bunch of conference championships? No, but I definitely think they can compete. Excuse me. I bet that was annoying me. But I definitely think that when it comes to basketball and track and field, because they don't have a football team, I think they can compete with any team in the SIAC. We've seen them compete with teams in the SIAC before. We've seen them compete with Division I teams. You know, so I just want to know what. Yeah, look, we all gonna be asking that question. We're all going to be asking that question. On paper, it looks like a great fit. What what the HBCUAC is doing is remarkable, and you you just want you would just be curious why you wouldn't want to be a part of it unless there was something logistically that would be keeping you from wanting to make that jump. You know what I mean? That was their home for before it was the HBCUAC. It was their home for 40 years. So of course you would think like it's a new conference from what you were a part of. It was an entirely a different conference. Now you have 5 different new members institutions from what you were familiar with. Stillman's there now, who came down from the SIAC. You have Philander Smith there now, and on July 1st you're gonna have Houston Tillotson and Paul Quinn. HBCUAC does have teams in Ohio and Virgin Islands. So, I mean, who knows? At this point, we're just speculating about why Zula wouldn't want to join. The only every time I think of why a team wouldn't want to join a conference other than North Carolina A&T wanting to go back to the MEAC, because we all know why they don't want to go back to the MEAC. And Hampton, we all know why they don't want to go back to the MEAC. But when you talk about Zula, it's just going to be speculation. I would love to. Maybe I'll just have to reach out to Zula's athletic director and see from their perspective, what went into this move, and maybe if there was any consideration for the HBCUAC. That is a very interesting question, because of course it's going to be personal for us because we see what the HBCUAC is doing. They're building an HBCU monopoly. And when you talk about building the HBCU mega conference, we've been asking that from the MEAC and the SWAC. Dr. Kiki Baker Barnes, she's doing that at the NAIA level. She's building an HBCU monopoly at the NAIA level, and she is reaping the benefits of her hard work. And the sky's the limit for what the HBCUAC could potentially do. Not to mention that our programs at the in the HBCUAC have been competitive. You look at the track and field championships, like I mentioned before, look at all the Dillard athletes that were in that tournament. I mean, not in the tournament, and that were competing in those track and field championships. Look at all the teams that have made it to NAIA national tournament from the HBCUAC. Not just the champions either. We've had at-large bids in addition to champions, to the tournament champions. So yeah, it's all speculation as to why the Zula wouldn't want to join the HBCU, or we don't even know that they don't want to. We're speculating that they wouldn't want to. It's just that they're not. They're going to be in the Southern States Athletic Conference, and if you know anything about this, you probably wouldn't, because this is HBCU sports, right? But the Southern States Athletic Conference, they are one of the most competitive conferences at the NAIA level. Loyola of New Orleans is in that conference, and they are a former NAIA national champion in men's basketball. Many of the track and field champions at the NAIA level are from the Southern States Athletic Conference. So this is one of the premier conferences when it comes to competitive athletics. So maybe Zula just feels like the better competition is in the Southern States Athletic Conference, and that's where they can truly test out their skills against the best. But again, it's just speculation until they come out and say, this is the reason why the Southern States Athletic Conference was the best move for us, and whether or not they even consider to go to the HBCUAC. I would love to see them in the HBCUAC, but we got to let them make that leap to the Southern States Athletic Conference and hope for the best. I hope it works out for them. They've been one of the premier programs at the NAIA level for years now. We don't talk about them much because they're not in the HBCUAC, what was then the GCAC. That's where the majority of our conference, our programs are, HBCU programs. We talk about, and even Langston and Florida Memorial gets left. Texas College gets left in the water because I don't want to say anything bad about Texas College, but we don't, Payne College is another one. The independent HBCUs at the Division I level get left in the water, what's the term I'm looking for? I'm just rambling. But the independent HBCUs at the Division I level, they have problems with being left, like, as it not being talked about as much as we do the SWAC and the MEAC. West Virginia State and Lincoln, Missouri left in the dust. See, that's why I rock with my chat. Shout out to you, Christopher Dukes, my dog. Left in the dust. They get the Division I HBCUs that aren't in the SWAC and the MEAC get left in the dust. The Division II HBCUs that aren't in the CIAA and the SIAC get left in the dust. And that same thing goes for the NAIA level. The HBCUs that aren't in the HBCUAC, it's hard for them to get that recognition, even though the schools that aren't in the HBCUAC, like Langston, like Florida Memorial, like Zula, they are Houston Tillotson until they get to the HBCUAC. They have premier athletes in their programs. And maybe this is just Zula saying, we don't care about the recognition. We want our athletes to be tested against the best, and we believe the best is in the Southern States Athletic Conference. Again, I would love to reach out to if anybody knows somebody from Zula that can put us in touch with them. So I would love to have a conversation with them. I'm going to reach out with them on my own, but yeah, it's all speculation at the end of the day. But that's going to do it for this edition of the Better Than Less Than podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. And we had a lively chat in here. Shout out to y'all for keeping me entertained, because I thought I was going to lose steam for a while. So shout out to y'all for keeping me intact and upbeat. But thank you all for watching. If you're new here, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. So you can subscribe to become a level 1, 2, or 3 member, so you can get all the exclusive content here from the HBCU sports team. You can follow us on all of our social media platforms. We are on Twitter, X, Instagram, TikTok, the Threads, and all of the social medias. Type in HBCU Sports and you will find us there. You can always go to HBCUsports.com for all the latest news in HBCU sports, and support the HBCU Sports Awards. It is coming in July 26th, right here on the HBCU Sports YouTube channel live. We will be honoring all of the best and brightest stars in the HBCU athletics for the 2024-2025 academic year. And I don't think there's any more we can say other than that. Get your merch on HBCUs, shop HBCU Sports, all of that, man. All right. See you guys.